Hello. These lights are bright.
Yeah, they're really bright.
Very bright.
There's a couple people out there.
Okay. We'll be good then. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Brian Shake. I'm the publisher at Rolling Stone, and joined today by leaders of three really incredible brands in the marketing space. And I think we are, my background on the Rolling Stone side, we've been cultural storytellers for a long time. And I think we're really living in a moment where brands are now storytelling themselves and leaning in and using culture and moments, entertainment, sports, nostalgia, history to do so. Very, very fortunate to be joined today. Greg Godotti, CMO of Ferrara Candy Companies. You may know of some brands like Nerds and Trolley, and if there's a candy corn fan out there, Brock's Candy Corn. Elizabeth Harlow, CMO of Sonesta Hotels, a brand that's really, I think kind of reinventing how you reward customers, drive loyalty through entertainment and experiences. And Russell Wager, CMO of Kia Motors, who leaning in on sports and music in a major way, certainly around the NBA and FIFA. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thanks.
Here.
So to start the conversation, and something we discussed over breakfast today, maybe Russell, I think a great place to start is you're looking at a sports landscape of, kind of an endless number of options, but you land on the NBA, you land on FIFA and World Cup. The goal is to drive connection, but how do you get there? And from a brand standpoint, what's the first step in, and then how do you create that evaluation and pick your spot?
So our philosophy is we're looking for an audience that wants to engage not only with the sport itself, but with our brand. We chose the NBA because the audience is so socially active and engaging. So yeah, they watch the games, they go to the games, they play it outside on their basketball courts and in their driveways, but they're on the social channels talking about the moments that are happening, and maybe we can talk a little bit about those in a bit. So the NBA for us was a no-brainer. We've been partners with them for 16 years. And then you go FIFA, World Cup, small little thing coming to the U.S. 2026, 11 cities across. We do it because Kia's brand globally, football or soccer, depending on where you're from, is a global sport. And it's going to reach, and it gives us an opportunity to engage with people for the good 6 months leading up. But the key is going to be, what do we do after the World Cup leaves the U.S., and how much are we still going to be soccer fans? That's going to be our challenge.
Talking about that moment after soccer leaves, right? And how do you maintain that conversation? I think, Elizabeth, for you, it's all about loyalty, and you want people coming back. You want them exploring your properties in new cities. But when you're looking to create connection, what's that first moment about? And then how do you approach that long-term piece of what's next after something special happens?
Great question. I think, well, first and foremost, when we're looking to identify whether it's sports or music or entertainment or fashion or how we want to kind of cut across our industry, our first indicator is what we're hearing from our guests. We typically reach out to them through different mechanisms, ask them what they're looking for from a hospitality experience, and then we create the moments around that. Certainly, we've leaned into music more. We've touched in sports a little bit with a brand called SailGP, which is an up-and-coming sport in the U.S. And similar to us, we are an up-and-coming company, a hospitality brand in the U.S. And trying to connect with another brand that has a similar kind of journey that we're on in terms of breaking through and cutting through the clutter. In terms of after that great event, if we can have the best partnerships in the world, but if we don't provide a clean and safe experience for our guests, nothing else matters. So anything that we do beyond that is gravy, for lack of a better word. And that's what's going to keep people coming back, number one. But number two, it's having those partnerships that they're asking us for, right? What they want their loyalty to build for something. And I think we hear also that they want experiences beyond a typical hotel stay. So that's what's informing a lot of our decisions and a lot of our partnerships.
And you mentioned being an up and coming brand. So, as an up and coming brand, what is important about this like entertainment, cultural relevant landscape as you build your brand?
So we have an awareness opportunity. So we're constantly trying to build that awareness. And one of the ways that we can do that is through partnership with other brands, drafting, for lack of a better word, off of their brand equity. That helps us position ourselves as relevant and having credibility. So we've partnered with Rolling Stone as an example, which is iconic, which can provide our guests experiences that money can't buy. And that enables us to have conversations and culture to reach new audiences that we simply couldn't do on our own. We have limited budgets, unlike some of my panelists up here. So we have to punch above our weight, and one of the ways that we do that is through partnerships. And
We're clearly talking about Russell, right?
yeah, clearly.
Why is it Pick on Russell Day?
It's something that I dream of, but I will never say never, but it's highly unlikely that we as a brand will be in a Super Bowl. Like, that's just not in the cards right now. So we have to look at other creative ways to get our name out there through earned press, through experiences, and et cetera.
You talk about brand awareness. Greg, you have an incredible portfolio and a totally different kind of awareness. I think a bit of latent awareness where everyone has a connection to candy at some point. But it really seems like just over the last few years, some of your brands that so many of us have a ton of nostalgia for, right? Like Nerds and Trolley candies that go way back to childhood are seeing like this massive comeback. And all of a sudden, brands that maybe only popped up once or twice a year around a holiday are, kind of making industry-shaking Super Bowl spots. So, what was your approach to that, and how did you go from, a childhood memory to something that's at the forefront of culture?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. It is amazing the portfolio that we have, and having the privilege to work in a category that's 100% emotional. And when you talk about any candy brand, from Atomic Fireball to Lemonhead to Red Hots to Trolley to Nerds to Sweet Tarts to Laffy Taffy, I could keep going, but I'm going to stop. But I think the point is that everyone has a memory, because this category has always been a treat. It's something that you remember nostalgically. I remember growing up in Stamford, Connecticut, and the candy was at the Happy House, which was the store 93 seconds from my home if you ran really, really fast. And because I did that with my neighbors, and we timed each other, and then you got Atomic Fireball and you came back home. And those are the kind of memories that, to have a privilege to work in a category like that, has been amazing. And I think speaking of Nerds specifically, this was a brand that had incredible awareness, but it was $70 million, which is material, but in that category very, very small. And by actually, we're blessed by having something that's known, and you've got to give them opportunities to consider. And that was really the consideration was the package that was thrown to me right at the beginning of this is Nerds Gummy Clusters. And that trajectory of a business that went from 70 million to almost $1 billion in 5 years on the shoulders of an innovation called Nerds Gummy Clusters was amazing. And the element of that is like we were able to grow that business without advertising at all. And then we saw ourselves with a business that was almost as big as the major competitor there. And we were at a 15 household penetration, meaning that 85% of households had never even tried it. And that was what got us to like, how do we get into the Super Bowl? Is that one place that you could really kickstart household penetration, and that was what was a choice that we made, and it was a giant bet for a very small-ish company, and it really paid out. And I think as we came to our second Super Bowl, we went from a 15 to a 25 household penetration. So, well, that was I maybe ran on a little bit too much, so apologize for that. But that's the story.
Well, we're talking about marketing, but I'm actually just really curious. You said it's an innovation.
Yeah.
How do you come up with this? Who's sitting around and is like, what would make Nerds better?
Yeah.
If we stuck them around a gummy bear.
Well, though what's interesting is that Nerds is a loved business, but it's messy, And so in 2001, someone came up with Nerds ropes. And so it's a foot long or so, gummy strand with nerds all around it. And we were like, yeah, that's really good, but that's a lot. So how do you make that poppable? So we were talking, and again, it's marketing, it's, R&D, and we're so like we first said, let's just make ropes bites, let's just cut it. And it was like, yeah, it's okay. But it was so. But then we make gummy products like Trolley and Black Forest, and we said, well, what if we could make it just a little bit smaller, more poppable? And then the R&D person came back and just said, okay, well, I'll make a gummy deposit. Instead of sanding it, sand is like if you did a trolley worm, like this is all technical terms. I'm sorry.
It's fascinating.
This whole thing, because if you see a trolley worm, it's like a gummy that's sanded with a very acidic sugar to give it its sour profile. And we said, well, what if we made nerds smaller, like baby nerds, and just wrapped it like that? And that was the idea. And it was we were in the room just talking about that was one of many ideas, and we said, okay, let's do it. And it was like, how big do you think it'd be? Well, Basie says it's going to be about $26 million. It's like, okay, so let's roll. And because didn't have to capitalize anything because we did it. So we got to roll with it, and we were able to really we knew we had something. And then it's so easy 5 years later to say this, but it was a lot harder. But it was like one of those many innovations that we put out every year. And it was one that just hit the perfect moment of poppability, multi-sensorial, multicolor, multi-flavor.
We should just make this the candy panel.
Yeah.
Wow.
We should just go deep down this
I mean,
rabbit
they're
hole.
going to be available at all Sonesta hotels.
Good deal.
And with every purchase of a Kia, you'll get a Nerds gummy.
Get a truckload of candy.
So,
This is the beauty of connecting people, right? Is you get the inevitable Kia gummy nerds crossover. But connection, right, is the big key, right? So how do you take that? How do you get a product that into people's hands that they love, and then how do you let fans know about that? I mean, we talked a little bit about how nerds kind of enters the culture, but Russell, we were talking as well about how you get that product. How do you leverage a sponsorship? How do you leverage talent? How do you get that product moment to happen where it becomes organic and the product becomes part of the conversation? I think we're just a few weeks after the dunk contest NBA All-Star weekend where Mac went over the roof of a Kia, but how does that happen? And then kind of what's the organic long tail for the brand?
So thank you for bringing that up. First of all, for those of you that didn't see the NBA All-Star game, I'm going to reference what he's talking about. But we do a whole element around the All-Star. It is activation displays so that if people can't get into the game themselves, they can go shoot some basketballs, dribble around our car, basically do the exact same thing that the stars are going to do at the Kia Skills Challenge on the court the day before. So we let them kind of feel like they're participating. It's organically around the car, so they can't miss it. But Mac McClung, you want to talk about talent for a second. So we didn't know Mac other than he jumped over the car, but 2 years ago he came on the scene, won the first dunk contest. A year ago he won it again, and we got a call from him and his agent saying, I'm going for 3. I want to jump over a Kia. And we're like, because for those who don't recall, 11 years ago, Blake Griffith jumped over an Optima's hood, the front of the hood. Pretty impressive at the time. Not a lot of social media there, and I'm going to get back to that. So Mac calls us and goes, I want to jump over a Kia, and we're trying to sell SUVs now. It's our focus. I was like, can you jump over one of our SUVs? He's like, no, not that high. So instead, he's like, but I do want to jump over the roof. So we got him a K5, our sedan, which is similar to the type of car, the Optima, that Blake jumped over. Blake is 6'9". Mac is 6'2". He jumped over the roof. And that moment was socially shared that weekend 400 million times. And a week later, it reached 1 billion shares. And every single shot angle that anyone is taking, there is a Kia car underneath Matt because he's jumping over it. So that's one element of, just pushing social out there. But we try to make it on a whole weekend. So it's not about one moment, but it's also a way of discovering a talent that we didn't even know wanted to be part of the Kia brand.
Social is key, right? It's where a majority of engagement takes place in the. You have the luxury of being associated with the NBA. Still does sports do great ratings, music moments do great ratings, but social is an absolute key. Super Bowl, we saw Addison Rae in the Nerds Gummy spot, and I think she's the queen of social. So when you're looking at the social landscape, how do you identify and say, like, this is either how we are going to intend to try to accomplish organic results, or here's who we want to work with in the social space? How do you land with someone as big on TikTok as Addison Rae?
It's interesting because it's a good story when we think about it in our businesses, because honestly we're so social forward in our engagement, and the majority of our communication spans, whether it be TikTok or Instagram, and then audio wise from Spotify stuff. So we're very in that Snapchat, and we're very forward in that sense, and we see how people are engaging with our brands on a day-to-day basis, and honestly. And we talked about this a little bit. When we made the decision to run our first Super Bowl spot, we had an idea, we had a concept. We drove cultural relevance through that Flashdance song and the iconic scene. And very funny that the Nerds Gummy Monster is going to, pull the thing and be rain nerds all over. We made the spot, we shot the spot. The spot was awesome, and then Addison Rae reached out because she's a big Nerds fan. And so we were talking about doing some other kind of activation stuff with her. We're just like, let's just change the end of our spot and have her be kind of the wink at the end, which is a complement to the total spot as opposed central to the communication itself. Because like we talk a lot about, like, you really need to know who you are as a brand, who you are as a business, and then you play that out. But what happened with that, and because of the virality of her as well, we were able to do a whole kind of dance scenes as a teaser and coaching in advance. But like the first thing was she was a giant Nerds fan and she was a user, so the authenticity came across and it wasn't forced. And when we were on, like, Brian came and sat in the front, we were on a Zoom call with her and just talking through it and just riffing, and she's coming up with ideas organically. And those kind of things when someone is that excited because they know your product and know your brand, that's how you know that it's right. That's the filter. And the only other thing I'd say is that at the shoot, when we were doing all the work, she was eating Nerds all day long. And usually when you do it, like, you can eat it and you spit it out, because like you're gonna be doing this for like 7 hours. And we were getting legitimately worried because she was pounding Nerds all day long. But she was incredibly talented and passionate about it, and that's what made it special.
So authenticity is the key, and it's one challenge to get authenticity with someone who's a megastar. I mean, we had Addison Rae on the cover of Rolling Stone and called her the queen of TikTok. She's at that level, but to get the authentic connection is critically important. Elizabeth, authenticity means something really different when working with talent to you. And I love the story of how you chose to work with Judy Greer as a brand fit. I would love if you could share a little bit about that, because it is the opposite of chasing a megastar and building off their wave, but it's finding something that's a perfect brand fit.
Yeah, certainly. So I can't see anybody's hands, but if I could, I would ask for a show of hands in terms of who knows who Judy Greer is.
I see like 7 hands.
Okay.
7 hands.
So she's someone who's, I can say that probably 9 out of 10 people would have risen their hands if they had seen a photo of her. So Judy Greer is an actress, and if you guys want to look her up right now, feel free. She plays the sidekick. She plays the bridesmaid. She is never the star, but she's been in everything. And similar to us at Sonesta, we're an 85-year-old company that you've never heard of. We like to call ourselves a startup, an 85-year-old startup. So when we were looking to kind of announce ourselves, we've gone through tremendous growth over the past 5 years. We went from 60 hotels to 260 hotels to 1,100 hotels in a matter of weeks. So we were reintroducing ourselves to the world, for lack of a better word, and we wanted to do it in a way that made sense and that was relevant, and to use a term that we use a lot, authentic. So we reached out to Judy Greer, who, like us, has an awareness opportunity in terms of brand awareness, and we pitched this idea to her, saying, we're having fun with who we are. We're being humble. We're being playful. I will always take the humor route when I can, because I do feel like it breaks through. So that's my kind of pathway of choice. So we reached out to her. She loved it. She thought the idea was hilarious and could really get behind it, and had a lot of fun with creating the ad for us. So we loved working with her. And then we had a follow-up campaign called Reward Season, which was a play on award season. Fun fact, Judy Greer's never been to an award show. And so she, again, had a real kind of fun time with that, of overacting and delivering this really kind of playful approach to who she is in terms of her career. And it was very much in line with who we are in terms of where we are with our brand. So that was the intention behind working with Judy.
That's awesome. Russell, are you going to continue working with Mac McClung in any way, or was this more about the moment related to the league and the kind of fandom around basketball?
So, interesting question. First of all, Mac plays in the G League in Orlando. It's one of the teams that we partner with, the Orlando Magic. Would love for him to get to the NBA. He would love to get to the NBA. But in the meantime, we're working on a couple things. One, the car that he jumped over, we've got it in our lobby, but we're trying to figure out who we can donate it to. I mean, that car is iconic. It's been made iconic. So we're working with him on a charity to donate it to. And then trying to ask him when the season is over, he's playing basketball, it's his job. When it's done, we're trying to think, where can he go do it again? Someplace else that you don't expect. So we'll bring a car, Mac comes up, does it. So we're trying to figure that out to keep it going. Stay tuned. We'll see how that goes.
I think the next piece, right, is we've talked about loyalty, we've talked about growing awareness, but then it becomes about connection, right, and kind of a conversion to, a true user. Elizabeth, we're working together on a project right now, which I love, which I think is inherently built around connection. How important is it for you when you're kind of trying to break through with consumers to deliver a moment that maybe they can't get anywhere else, and tailor that and find that like ownable piece for your brand?
Yeah, that's exactly right. As I said before, we as a brand, Sonesta, are probably not going to work with the mega stars out there, right? We're not going to have those big moments, which I love, but it's just not right for our brand and who we are. So we want to do something on a smaller scale. And that's what we're doing with Rolling Stone, their iconic Musicians on Musicians series. We're bringing that to our hotels, where our guests can have experiences that literally money can't buy. Like you cannot get in there off the street with a ticket. You're only going to get there by virtue of being a member of our loyalty program. And that's something that we can do, and we can execute, and we can do it well. And I think I was joking before, I'm not an expert on music, but my partners at Rolling Stone are. And so I rely on their expertise and their vision to identify artists that are going to fit with our brand, that are going to fit within the locations of where we're having these performances. We have one in Austin in 2 weeks with Charlie Crockett, an established artist, and Nolene Hoffman, an emerging artist. And that's kind of the whole framework of Musicians on Musicians, where you have an established and emerging artist having these kind of organic conversations followed by live performances in some cases. And we had our first one in Chicago last year, which was, I couldn't have asked for anything better. We had it with Common, who's a Chicagoan, and No Name as the emerging artist, and spur of the moment freestyle rap by Common for about 10 to 20 minutes, I would say. Again, something that I couldn't buy, couldn't expect it, my jaw was on the floor. I was so happy. And the moment that that content that we can take from that purely kind of serendipitous moment was unforgettable. So I joke too that saying back to, if it was up to me, the artist that I would pick would be Depeche Mode, Green Day, and the Pet Shop Boys. And those are not emerging artists and not who our guests necessarily want. So I rely, that's what the beauty of a partnership can really deliver.
Yeah.
Well, we've had Green Day in musicians on musicians. Well, Billy Joel Armstrong, and
Yes.
we paired with Billie Eilish, right?
Yes.
So we create that kind of cross-generational connection moment. What's really interesting, you talk about someone like Common, who has won every award. He's at the top of every list in terms of an all-time great. So how do you differentiate or equate like affinity to talent or affinity to a strong moment with affinity to your brand?
Is that for me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good luck. And then,
So I think it's not one or the other. It is the intersection of both. And as I mentioned, we have to have the connection. All of our hotels are in unique locations with their own personalities. So the talent has to be contextual to that moment in time, that destination. Yes, we do our research on the talent and we ensure that it's a brand fit. But again, we rely heavily on our partners who are the authorities in music. We're the authorities in hospitality, not in music. So it becomes very localized, very hyper contextual to the market and to our hotels in that market and to the talent altogether. So it's all inputs to deliver what the actual moment will be.
And I think just to build on that is there's so much that you could do every day, and the cycle of that news is so fast. I mean, we do a lot of stuff that is very much on a small scale, but it's predicated on, the product and that usage and like your positioning, how, so if I use Trolley as an example, Trolley is something that is consumed uniquely and independently, and oftentimes when you're gaming. It's mainly a Gen Z audience, over-indexed to males versus females, but it's like Gen Z digital natives gamers. And it was like, so in this element of like, so how do you drive those contextual connections? And what we did is, we paired up with, some Twitch gamers and really played it out. And like, do I know any of their names? No. Could I tell you them? No. Were they great human beings? Yeah, they were awesome. But I would, I'd text my son and be like, yeah, is this good? He'd say, yeah, this guy's good. And so, but it doesn't. I don't think it like it's more about that second level, whether it be micro or nano or whatever. But these kind of things, you just keep hitting those back to back to back. And I think for Trolley, it's really been able to carve out a space, identifying with gamers stuff. And we're going to be doing some interesting stuff in the coming months with some other brands that are associated with gaming. And it's like it's mutually beneficial. But it's like just keep hitting doubles, hitting singles on that kind of stuff as well, because it is like there's so much that you can do in that front. And like if something hits and scales, then you promote it more. And if you don't, you do something else.
from a marketer standpoint, you said Gen Z, digital first, digital natives, these young audience, they have to be the most skeptical consumers that exist, right? They've grown up in a world where there's more transparency in advertising, there's more transparency in brand deals. What is your thought process and what's the brand approach in terms of, as you said, being authentic and creating something that they believe in?
Yeah. I mean, again, the gamers that we partnered up with actually use Trolley. So it's not like we're getting you to use Trolley. And if you don't like Trolley, okay, we'll move on. And like that, I think that's the element of that front, because there are those ways. We always are looking for that natural connection, because that is that point of authenticity. And this is Russell was saying, like, the importance of buying a car is number 2 to buying a home. That is a big investment and a big bets, and he's got a big job and he's incredibly talented. I got $1.99 or $2.25. So it's like there are a lot of users in the space. So like you have this opportunity to just really just be who you are, because your user base is so broad as well.
So let me add on to that. You talk about gaming. So NBA, we've been doing that for a while, and we're a growing brand. Kia, for those who don't know, 5 years ago we sold 500,000 cars. Last year we had a record year. We sold 800,000 cars. That's pretty good growth, and we have plans to continue. So in order to grow, you got to find new audiences, right? Ideally, we're going to get loyalty. We're going to get some people that are going to love the experience, want to repurchase, and they have another car. But we got to find some new audiences. So we dipped our toe into the esports arena with Riot Games, League of Legends, and when I first when I first started talking to my execs and CEO, and I said, no, this is not 18-year-olds playing Pac-Man. This is 25 to 45-year-olds that are fully dedicated to it, and 50% of them do not watch NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, so we were missing half of them. And then the final sale point was, and 1 out of every 4 of them is going to buy a new car in the next year. Yeah. So that's when my CEO goes, all right, we're in. And we've been learning, and we don't know everything. So we partnered with a couple of teams, and we've actually let them create content that's talking to their audience. And we're putting it in our channels, they're putting it in theirs. And we're getting a lot of positive feedback that we didn't come in, slap a logo on something, and say, we're here. We came in and say, we want to be a part with you, we want to grow with you, let's do it together.
We work with partners a lot, right? Where they say, let's tell a story authentically. Let's create content in your voice, in your tone to speak to your audience. The hardest thing for a marketer to do is to let go, right? To let go of the copy points, to let go of some of the, or loosen some brand safety guidelines. But in esports space, which is new for you, how did you approach that? And when you're saying you let the teams create the content for themselves, what was your direction? How hands-off were you willing to be? And how successful was the result, or your thought on what came back?
Yeah, so we gave 2 guidelines. Guideline 1, try to show our car at some point in time, whatever. Just it doesn't have to be half, but just try to show our car somehow. And second, try not to damage it in what you're doing. So with that being said, they came, well, we want to wrap it, and we want to show off the technology of it parking and making fun of somebody and almost running somebody over. And okay, fine, go ahead and try. And it worked, and it was funny, and it was, again, authentic from them. And I would never have created that content because I would have been scared of I'm making fun of somebody, or I might have hit somebody, but they were just doing it in their own way. And it got huge responses that we put it on our channels. We weren't going to put it on our channels, but people loved it. So you got to take a chance. Yeah,
and I think there's that element of co-creation makes it better. And I think that it's an element of, there's a premise regardless of, some might think, but diversity of thinking and diversity of backgrounds gets to better solutions, 100% every time. So me, I've been in the industry my whole career across a bunch of different brands. I've got preconceived notions, and you just got to get comfortable that the people that are, even the people in our team that are younger, have different experiences, have had different experiences with these brands, and that element of like just get comfortable to be a little uncomfortable, because that's when it's going to really, really be good. And again, I think for us, we always say the stakes we try to make the stakes as low as possible, because at the end of the day, we're making candy, and that kind of element. So if you have that kind of lens, people feel more comfortable coming up with dumb ideas or great ideas, or dumb ideas become great ideas.
And I think that, to Russell's point, consumers will see through the fakeness, right? So if you try and wrap your logo around a partnership that is completely in conflict with your brand, consumers are going to see, and they're going to react to it, and they're going to reject it. So by giving your partners that permission structure to tell your brand story, gives you a lot more authority and authority on the subject.
So you talked about going into esports, and I think someone mentioned earlier, right? Like, what's the long tail coming out of these types of things? Elizabeth, you talked about this great moment with Common that we had in Chicago, and we're building on it this year. But how are you looking to continue that conversation and deepening the affinity or loyalty or experience with your consumers following some of these really special moments at your hotels?
Well, I think we touched on it before. One of the things that we love about our partnership with Rolling Stone, in addition to those moments, those beautiful kind of one and done moments, it's all the content that we create as a result of it. And again, talking like my own kind of modesty around my budgets, I do rely on these producers to create content for us, in again on a social platform that is real. And again, people who are on social don't want to see highly produced content. They react to it poorly. So by partnering with Rolling Stone, we're able to take advantage of that content, to use it to act almost as our production teams that we don't have in house. So that's how we kind of stretch it and pull it and use it on these different platforms. Again, we rely heavily on earned press too, right? That there's something newsworthy about us, Sonesta, partnering with a brand like Rolling Stone. So that's another added benefit to a partnership, and has that kind of flexibility of content.
Yeah, and I think the other thing I just would build is there's this element of like understanding your brand and the role that your brand plays in the world. Like you want to be, it doesn't become one-offs when it's like they become chapters of that same story.
Right.
Nerds is all about unleashing your senses. So you might do the, what a wonderful world on Shibuya, but like you're talking with other athletes doing interesting things where they're unleashing their senses, but it goes back to that brand. So it's chapters of that brand story.
So let's talk for a second. Big moments, right? And the long tail. Sometimes they're short tails, but let's go with the long tail. So we've been a partner with New Year's Eve, Times Square. We work with Dick Clark Productions and New Year's Eve Ball Drop, and we have the Times Square billboard. So the reason we do it is 100 million people around the globe are watching that, right? No matter where you are, you're going to try to tune into that one moment. And the other part is, everyone is so hopeful for what's going to happen after midnight in the new year. The hopes and dreams, the prospects of better in your lives, better in the world. It's all happening on that night, right? So we sell cars, but at the same time, that's a moment that we want to make a little bit of what people are thinking that night.
Yeah, that's nice.
So this past year, we decided we were going to help tell a story of somebody. And the story was somebody was going to propose. The guy knew he was going to propose. The girl did not. So we flew them to New York. They won a Kia contest. And we put them next to our EV9, and at midnight, when the ball started dropping, on the billboard that I should be advertising a car on, it said, "Haley, will you marry me, Garrett?" And at that point in time, the camera cut down to Garrett on his knee next to her. And before I finish, you have to always do a plan A and plan B, right?
Yeah.
So everyone tells me, it's like, she's going to say yes. Don't worry. She's going to say yes. And I'm like, uh-huh. And if not, so we made two signs. Sign one was, she said yes. And sign two was, she's still thinking about it. She said yes. We captured that moment. And then we put it out for the next week. And there was so much positivity around it. Because first, somebody's about to start a new chapter in life. Everyone's starting a new year. It was a positive, uplifting moment brought to you by Kia. And we didn't sell a car. We just said that we were able to be part of it.
That's really the power of cultural marketing, right? Is the willingness to realize that of your overall communication strategy, right? You're going to have lower funnel tactics. You're going to be running highly targeted programmatic to schedule a test drive or book a hotel room or where can I purchase this product. But the beauty of kind of cultural marketing is the willingness to just be part of the moment and be an authentic part of the moment. we talk about another big moment coming up that's going to have 100 million eyeballs around the world, which is World Cup coming here. It's a really unique challenge, I think, because soccer is lower on the priority list of most American sports fans. I think it's growing in popularity and making great strides, but we're going to have a Super Bowl caliber moment here for 1 month. And then that sports awareness will go back to its more typical levels. So how are you going to continue to be part of a moment or be part of the cultural conversation of soccer beyond that New Year's Eve level moment for the sport?
So I just want to put in perspective what Brian said, just so everyone captures it. There is going to be 3 Super Bowls a day for 39 days happening when the World Cup occurs. That's what he's referencing. That's the largeness of it, and it's going to be awesome for North America. It's going to be great for the U.S. It's in 11 different venues, and as a partner, I am scared shitless.
Yeah.
How am I going to activate in all of these cities? How am I going to tell my story with fans that are so fanatical? So we're working on different elements. I mean, everybody in this room at some point in time is going to cheer for some team, right? Whether it's US, Mexico, Croatia, Spain, whatever it is, you're going to have a team that you're going to cheer for. And I think what we're going to try to do is understand that and then try to keep that conversation afterwards. And the afterwards part is your team won, didn't win, it showed well, had a good scene, had a good game. That's what we're trying to figure out to keep it beyond. But I got to get to June of 2026 first before I can do that.
Yeah. I think and just to get I still have bad memories of sitting on the bench in soccer for Bates College for 4 years. It's terrible, but as a soccer lover, but my skills peaked in high school. But I think the connecting with culture element, it's like, I'll give you just a couple examples, and it's like, this is something that I feel like Ferrara does punching above the weight. We're always paying attention to what's going on in the conversation being had. And a real silly one was, actually my brother sent me this thing that came from, it was New Bristol, or Bristol in Connecticut News, about, and it was in this convenience store had been robbed. And they said they stole lottery tickets, they stole dollars, and then she walked in the candy aisle and they stole Nerd Gummy clusters. And it was like, so it was a full case and then just this empty slot. So we sent the guy a couple cases of Nerd Gummy clusters. We didn't promote it. You just do the right thing in that thing because you heard it. And the fact is that got some good, positive press, much more than it was what it was worth, but because it was just about our team paying attention. And that's how hard we need to work together to, you find those opportunities. And again, the thing is, like, if no one said anything about that, and there's probably, now there are, a few more people that know about this one story, it didn't matter to me. What mattered was doing the right thing, and that was the other thing. And the only other one example we talked about is there was at Rice University, there was this dude that he was a trainer on the sidelines, and we saw that he was giving trolley to the players just as a little pep on this stuff. So Cayman, who's sitting in the front row here, he and his team put together a trolley bag, a trolley hat, made him the trolley worm guy. And honestly, just to give him, share some delight with this guy who was like loving our brand. And all of a sudden, he's at Rice, he's on the sidelines, and ESPN calls him. There's a Sports Illustrated stuff. So like you are able to create these stories that have scale when you're paying attention to how your brand's engaging.
Your target consumer, young, candy forward kind of fans, right? They're leaned in on social media. Information and trends come at a breakneck pace. How do you tell your team, or how do you instruct them to pay attention to trends? Where do you choose to move quickly on some of those things? Because I'm sure there's dozens of moments a day that you could capitalize on. How do you filter that out?
I mean, I think we've got a mechanism to assess them internally and move. And again, this is kind of a low impact product. It's very easy to send person the product that they love. So it's a very different dynamic on that front. So that's the one area. But like, we have things where there are events over the course of the year that you plan for, Halloween, and so you've got like a planned bet type stuff where you're going to be activating, and then you have quick wins. Something happens, and then you respond. And I think what we do, we try to respond to a lot of stuff in there, and because like those singles could bring things home. So.
And I think by nature, again, we run the spectrum here in terms of how agile we can be. Certainly, Greg has the lowest point of entry. Russell has the highest. We're somewhere in the middle. But I think, of course, we have social listening teams that are trying to keep their eyes out for those trends. How do we act on them? How can we be agile and really trend jack in the moment? And we can do a lot of fun stuff with hospitality in hotels. So much happens at hotels, and we're constantly looking and listening to see how we can surprise and delight a guest. And of course, influencers play a huge role in what our business is. They have to. Travel by nature is so experiential. It's so kind of, you make your dreams out of travel, and we're always listening and looking to see where those opportunities are that we can just really kind of pounce on them. But again, it's easier for us, for a hotel, for Candy than a car potentially. But I don't want to speak for you.
So it's interesting, and I know Greg keeps making fun of me, but when I say
tease those you love,
other than buying a house, it's the largest purchase you're ever going to make, right? So if you look at some of the owners' forums and the conversations that go on there, we don't own the brand. Our customers and our owners do, right? So a lot of times when things are being said that are either incorrect, derogatory about us, we cringe, and then we wait, and then someone defends us in the social world. Yeah. And that's when you know that you have a brand out there that has some meaning to somebody, that they're willing to put it out there, right? In this day and age, everyone's got a voice on social. Yeah. They'll let everyone know, and it's good to see when people defend. So most of the time, the only thing that we do is somebody buys a car. At some point in time, there might be a problem with it. We'll fix it, but they get frustrated and mad and like, why? And they just call us separately. We'll take this out of the forum and let's deal with it. So it's really interesting to see how people become advocates of brands and kind of do our jobs.
Yeah. We've talked so much over the last couple of days about cars and what you drive and what you do. And it's like, honestly, I've become like, my next car will be a Telluride. I mean, it's like square up, and it's like, Highlander, go to hell, man. And so, but it's really amazing. But it is, because there is I've loved cars my whole life. But it's right, because of the what you're spending on this, it says something about you. It's reflection on these elements. So like the emotional elements that Russell could play off of are just so amazing, because the stakes are that high, and people want it. They've got pride in what they have. Mm-hmm. You got to tell that other story, the one you told us about the gas station.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I drive a Telluride. It's my company car. Yeah. And I was getting gas in it, and I'm wearing no Kia logoed anything. And a Range Rover pulls up. Guy gets out, looks at my car. I was looking at a Telluride, and I'm like, What about it? He goes, why didn't you get it? Well, I didn't want to wait 3 to 6 months, so I settled for the Range Rover. And I was like, oh, thank you.
Doing my job.
I was like, oh, okay, that's good. But it's just a testament to the brand, to the car. It's not about a price point element. It's about what you get, what you see, what you like in it. So I think it's doing pretty well.
What's so interesting is we sat down to talk about cultural moments and entertainment and big talent and mega stars and 100 million YouTube views in 24 hours, right? Those kind of big, exciting things. What has come out of this conversation is you all approach things organically, right? And you're willing to be part of the cultural conversation and allow things to organically happen around your brand. So yes, there's Addison Rae or Common or the NBA All-Star Weekend, but where we've landed is that the authenticity leads to the consumer being your biggest advocates. It's led to the consumer being your biggest advocates in the auto space, to jumping into the social conversation and being loyal to your products. And that's the end result, right, that you're all looking for. You're looking for repeat consumers. You're looking for loyalty. So it's really interesting. The big work goes in at the top where all the dollars are spent. But if done right, you end up in a place where your consumers defend you in online forums and are willing to talk to you in different ways, which is really incredible. And it's fascinating to see all your different marketing stories of how you get there. I'm thrilled to have had this conversation, but I would love to open it up if anyone has questions. There's a microphone in the center aisle, and would love for anyone to get up if you have questions for Greg or Elizabeth or Russell.
By the way, we love questions.
Hi, this is a question for Russell. So you talked a lot about sponsoring the NBA, a little bit about the All-Star Weekend. I think there's been a lot of conversations in the NBA community around All-Star Weekend recently. Obviously, a great viral moment with the dunk contest. But how do you assess events that you've been part of historically, and what are those conversations like internally to see if that's something you want to continue doing or move away from it? Thank you.
First of all, a great question. Everything we do is measured at the end of the day. So a lot of conversations around NBA, ratings were down, okay, but social conversation was up. We have an activation where people are giving us their information so that we can continue to have a dialogue with them. Those leads that we're generating are up 25% year over year. So that says that we should do it again and maybe improve on it a little bit more. So we're doing a measurement from everything relative to a conversion, to a lead. And if it pays off, then we keep doing it and look for more of those.
Hi, this is going to sound selfish because I'm a music supervisor for ad campaigns, but first of all, I want to say the Kia EV9 campaign that you guys did with David and Goliath a year ago, I think it was beautiful. It was like the car by a lake. Music was incredible in that. What do you guys see the role of original music in ad campaigns being?
How about I start for 1 second? So that was Coldplay, and now I'm going to blank on it. So that wasn't original music, but that song worked well with the content. We try most of the time not to use recognizable music. We try to look at what the concept is, match up a sound, a music base that's going to work and help tell that story, as opposed to be the story. That's our philosophy. They might have.
Yeah, because you want your brand to be the hero every
Star.
time. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No.
So you want the brand to be the hero. So we often are doing original music in our video communications and the like, and the only ones where when you're trying to deliberately break into culture, like we did with the Super Bowl this year. I mean, with the Super Bowl being in New Orleans. What a Wonderful World, Louis Armstrong it's just an iconic song that has that level of hope, this element of, and then so that becomes so music is like, again, unleashing all your senses are sound. So like you play that across, and like the importance of your job is there for sure, in that kind of sense of like, because you are in multimedia senses, you need to make sure that you've got the right sound, you've got the right sound effects, you've got the right music, you've got the right visuals, and it all comes together, wrapped up in like, what is it you want the consumer to feel about your product and take away?
Yeah, I mean, I would underscore both of those points. I think it's the message that you're trying to get across and what the musical component to that message is. It would be, again, contextual based on what the medium is, based on again, how you want the consumer to feel. I think original music would be ideal. To the earlier points of my panelists, how do you enable the total message to come across and land when you have something that's so recognizable that might dilute the message? So how do you bring up young artists and celebrate original music to go with whatever that campaign might be?
Yeah, it sounds like that philosophy is the same philosophy that we used on Gap's holiday campaign this last year.
Great.
Nice. Glad to hear it.
Yeah.
Hello, hi, my name is Luke. I'm a student at University of Denver, and I was sort of wondering, you guys all talked about when you're partnering with talent it really creates a more authentic experience if the talent is like familiar and an active consumer of your product and of your company. But I was wondering, like, if the talent is not as aware with your company or your product, how do you work to create that authentic experience in your advertising?
I mean, I think the one thing is like if again, as I said, with one of I'll just say our biggest brand is a 25% household penetration. That means that 75% of households haven't tried it yet. So there are going to be people that haven't tried this product. There are probably a lot of people in this room that haven't tried it. So, but you have a discussion and you start talking about your brand, and if that person starts responding. And like you could really riff, and you're building. We were having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and he happens to be. But it's like we just started riffing, and you could get the feel that you could look that person in the eyes, and they're going to do right by your brand and your business because you're building ideas together. So I think it's a great thing if you know it, but if you can get excited about it too, that happens as well.
And I think they don't. To that point, it would be ideal if they know your brand, if they've engaged with it, certainly, but. If there's some kind of other connectivity that star or that celebrity might have, that's also very real and very valuable, similar to what we were talking about with Judy Greer in the campaign that we did. She didn't know the brand, but she was in a very similar kind of state as we were. So it became believable, and people could understand the connectivity between her brand and our brand.
I give you one last thing. So we're a sponsor of Inside the NBA. Charles Barkley is one of the commentators. And since we've been sponsoring for a while, all of a sudden one day, he's like, I think I want a Kia. He bought a Telluride. He talks about it usually once a month about in my Kia, in my Telluride. Wow. We didn't pay him a thing. So there's somebody that's now very familiar about it and is just organically doing it, right?
That's
so
amazing.
that's a great partnership. But thank you for the question.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
For Ferrara, you talked about the internal mechanism for deciding when to jump on moments.
Yep.
And I was wondering if you or the group could talk about weighing the risks and like what kind of assessments you do as part of a brand that's sometimes a little conservative about when to jump in. I was curious how you guys operate and decide when to really jump on those cultural moments.
I mean, it's very if it's a moment that's happening in the world, it's very easy to jump on. If it's a moment that someone is commenting on, we have people. I mean, everybody's on social media, so you can do a little bit of a background check to determine where this person's positions are and any kind of crazy points of view. And if it's like kind of in that, like we just pass. But I think it's really like we try to say very low risk and with the potential of very high reward. So that's kind of the profile that we've got. But yeah, we'll go through some level of diligence before we do anything.
I recall Michelle St. Jacques, who at Molson Coors, she was the CMO for a time, but her approach was...
Yeah, I used to work with her. I love her.
She's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fast, messy, awesome.
Yeah.
Which was, if you're going to be part of the cultural conversation, you're going to be fast. It's not always going to be perfect and perfectly dialed up. But if you do it right, do it enough times, and have the right touch, it can really be awesome.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Samantha. I work in the Latin Grammys and brand partnerships, and I was just curious how you all balance between experiential activations, like in-person touch points, with your digital presence and campaigns when thinking of what you're rolling out next.
I'll take that first. As we mentioned before, these in-person moments are huge for us, and they're kind of the groundwork for 2025. But because of those in-person moments, we're able to create the content that we will use across all of our channels. So they have to work hard. We've always said anything that we do, it has to work hard for us. And so a lot of these moments are doing exactly that through content production, creation, and then hopefully with a great stretch goal of that earned media too. So they all work within the funnel, up, down, from top to bottom for us.
Yeah, I think any event or any activation at any location can scale online. I mean, that's just the simple point. I mean, Russell brought up the example of, the guy jumping over the Kia, and that happened in one place, but it went everywhere. And I think you kind of want to have that kind of like what could be extendable and what could be relevant to your audience based on that activation.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Nice.
That's it. We're at time.
There you go.
Fantastic. Thank you all for joining us. This was awesome.
Thank you for having us.
And thank you all for sitting in with us today. I hope everyone had a good one.